Hello and welcome to the magic of fishing. You join me on a sunny Sunday afternoon in April. It really is a glorious day and I'm like a kid at Christmas because I'm on a brand new water for me. It's part of a new club as well. I joined Farnham Angling Society a couple of weeks ago. It's a very well-known club in the south. It's got some famous waters and some well-known anglers amongst its membership too. I've just never felt that I had the time to do it justice on top of my existing clubs around the Woking area, but the kids are getting older now. I've got a bit more spare time on my hands than I used to, and this year I thought why not, and yeah, really excited to be at Stockbridge Pond, which is near a lovely village called Tilford in Surrey, and this water is known for its tench and crucian carp, which is my kind of fishing. I've brought a couple of float rods with me today, but before I set up I had a look round the pond. There's a shallow arm up that way and it gets deeper towards the dam down on my right, and after speaking to a friendly fellow club member called Tinker Steve, or that's the name he goes by, saw him catch a fish, he advised me to try walking down the bank from the car park, going along the dam wall and then back up, and I'm on peg 28 and there's deeper water here. I've just plumbed up 2 rods and I'm going to fish a small waggler straight out in front of me, only a rod length out, where it shelves off to about 6 foot, maybe 7 foot in depth, and then I've got a second rod. I'm going to fish old school with a centre pin and a lovely handmade black bottom float from Andy. Thanks again Andy for these floats, and I urge you to check out black bottom floats on YouTube. But I've got a lovely porcupine quill which I'm going to fish with that centre pin and slightly more powerful rod down in the margin to my right, and there I'm going to feed ground bait, pellet and corn, and try for maybe a bigger fish down the side. The waggler rod straight out in front. I've got caster, hemp, and I'm going to fish just loose feed out there, see if I can catch anything that swims. That's my usual approach on a new water. So let's get cracking. And I'm only really making a gentle cast so I can sink the line back. It's no more than a rod length out that I'm fishing. Always like to try close in on a new venue. Had a good plumb about. There's a definite shelf that drops down from a marginal depth of maybe 4 foot down to the 6 or 7 foot that I'm fishing in now. I know the stock is largely tench and crucians, but I think there's a few silvers, 1 or 2 perch, and it just remains to be seen whether the bites are going to come thick and fast or it'll be more a case of sitting it out and waiting for better fish. I'll be happy either way, but it's that excitement of having no idea what to expect. I mean, any fishing sessions like that, you don't know, depending on the day, conditions, what to expect whenever you go fishing. But of course, when you get to know a venue really well, you get a rough idea. But fishing somewhere completely new like this, I don't know whether I might get a bite first chuck or might be an hour. I don't know whether to feed heavy, light, whether I've got the right bait, but having lots of small particles, apologies for the duck fight going on over there, having lots of small particles should mean I've got a chance of feeling out the venue, and if there are any small fish about, hopefully get a few bites from them, and then we'll keep the feed going in little and often, but not too heavy to begin. I'll just try and feel my way into the session and we'll see if we can catch any of the better fish. It is bright, sunny, but the water should be warming up. We've just had a couple of the warmest days this year so far, up into the upper teens, and that should be warming the water up a bit. And of course spring is the time for tench, so just to catch one would be nice. I must say it's a very beautiful, picturesque lake, lots of pine trees, silver birch, wildflowers, You can hear a coot now. Lots of wildfowl, reeds, and a few of the first pads are starting to show. I'm told there are quite a few beds of lilies here in the warmer months. Yeah, it was lovely just to have a quick walk round, have a chat with Steve. There's a few other anglers on, but not many. And there's a golf course behind me, so it really is quite peaceful apart from the warring ducks. But yeah, we'll keep a few casters going in over the top of the float and hopefully bring some fish in. And my only slight concerns are that Steve did mention it's a water that fishes best in the morning, and a lot of members come here early doors. Yeah, and he also mentioned there weren't too many silvers, so it might be a case of sitting it out for better fish rather than a bite of chuck. And he thirdly said that maggots are a good bait here, and just with the stocks largely consisting of tench and crucian, I just had hemp, casters, pellets in mind. Not brought any maggots or other moving bait, but if the fish like maggots, they've got to like casters. Oh, that was a bite. Second cast, double caster, and that is absolutely lovely to see on a new venue when you really are feeling your way in. Didn't have anything for the first 5 minutes on the first chuck, and then it's just dipped and sailed away, and I'm a bit surprised I missed it, but let's have another go. Well, you viewers at home don't have to suffer the slow periods, but it's been the best part of an hour now with just that one bite, one rod length out on the caster. It feels too slow to me, even if I am told this isn't the ideal time to be fishing. Being a bit of a matchman, I like to keep trying things, so I'm going to keep trickling in a feed on that close line, but give it a rest, give it some time to hopefully build up. And now I'm going to try sort of normal waggler distance out there, 20 metres, a good chuck out, keep the two lines distinctly separate, and I'll just feed very light with a few casters out there. There's a nice ripple coming down the lake, and let's see whether the fish are a bit further out. I'm to backwind a bit here. Apologies for the loud plane coming over. It really is going. Really nice after an hour of patiently trying to finally connect. It really is scrapping. And it's a tench. Lovely. There you have my first Farnham Angling Society fish from Stockbridge Pond. Nice little tench. Let's get him back. Well, it seems the fish here do like casters, and it also seems my hunch that they might be further out was true. It's only been 2 or 3 casts, but the speed of that bite tells me there's a few fish out there, and we'll give it another go. Tench number 2, again not a biggie but pristine fish, really good scrap on the relatively light gear, and seem to have found the fish a bit further out. we're into a third on the long waggler. It's just a single caster. There's definitely a few fish out there compared to closer in. Always feels extra satisfying when you've had to work at it a bit, especially on a new venue. You're not sure what you're doing. You stick to your principles. Keep trying different things. And another hard fighting fish in this clear water. Oh, it's a bend in the rod, that. Another tench, perhaps a bit bigger than the other two. Wow, that's the best, plumpest tench so far. Really nice fish. Look at that lateral line standing out. Beautiful condition. One single caster. They're definitely feeding on the hempen caster, just that extra distance out. And I'm enjoying this now. Well, that's thick and fast now. Another fish, the very next cast. The float had barely settled and it went under. Quite remarkable when I spent the first 50 minutes or so with just one missed bite. It's not quite a fisher chuck now, but this will be number 4 if I can get it out. Classic tail slap. And it won't be doing the inside lines much good, this, but it doesn't matter when you're catching fish like this. Beautiful green gold. And we're in again. Didn't take long. Another 5 minutes or so. A couple of casts. Been feeding the caster. Oh, and this one's running again. Feels like another tench. It's lovely clear water. You can see them coming up. The fish are definitely further out, and I'm really glad I tried it, rather than just waiting for something to happen. That's a lovely long fish. Certainly the longest fish of the day, and look at the size of that tail. Put up a really good scrap. It really has come to life, this place, since fishing further out. That's number 5. Not that it's about numbers, but very nice fifth fish even to get. And they don't half slime up your hook link. In the same after every fish. Give it a flick. It is important you get it off, because I really have found through experience that if you've got any blobs of slime down that hook link, the bites won't be forthcoming. There you can see the 16, fairly fine wire. It's a Drennan silverfish pattern. It's nice wide gape for fishing a couple of casters or corn if I try that later. And we're back out on the long line, double caster again. It is making me wonder what's happening on these inside lines that I primed earlier. Put a few balls of ground bait in down on the right hand side margin. some Census crazy bait, dark pellet based ground bait, some corn, a few pellets, but perhaps they'll be worth targeting later in the afternoon. And the Visiwag that I'm fishing is a fairly light one because I was only intending to fish close in, so it's just about allowing me to get that 20 metres. I've actually been upping the feed. Good few casters and a good bit of hemp every chuck now. In fact, talking about the waggler, it's a 1.5 gram model. That reminded me, I've actually got it, my usual setup, which is a couple of float stops and a float attachment. So rather than complain about the waggler being a bit on the light side for the line I'm fishing, let's get a heavier one on there. It's another 1.5. 175. If we're going to change, we might as well do it for something a bit bigger. There's a 2 gram. That should be spot on. And it goes to show the value of using a float attachment. Makes it easy to change. That's a much more comfortable, smoother cast, well past where I'm feeding and fishing, and that gives me plenty of line to draw back under the surface. Just goes to show it's worth taking the time to make these little changes. Would you believe it? First cast, float was still settling and it buried. And this, just like the noisy plains, is a familiar feeling now. It's a lovely feeling. Oh, pulled out. There's definitely some pads coming out just down here, and that's where the fish that are in the know head for. Didn't actually take me into them, but I did have to give it a bit of stick, and pulled out of that one. But that was amazing. First cast with a heavier float. It was like it was overshotted. It was settling and then not there anymore. Let's try again. Beautiful surroundings though. The occasional plain to one side, it's really quiet, peaceful. Lovely place to fish. I'm really enjoying it. Oh, this is remarkable. Very next cast after losing that last fish near the pads, and almost carbon copy. Float had been settled for less than 10 seconds and buried. This is again heading over to the right, but I'm in a bit more control this time. It really is thick and fast now. And another nice heavy one this. Much steadier, slower fight, but that is a real chunky one, a bit deeper than the rest. Lovely fish. really is like fishing for roach on the long waggler line. Pretty much a fisher chuck now. Really up the feed. There's obviously lots of fish out there because the bites are still coming pretty quickly. Except they're not roach, they're tench. This is prolific. Of course, it remains to be seen whether we need these inside lines or not, but whatever happens, I'm having a cracking day. Shuffle them in. There's number 6. Fighting fit. This is already a great day's fishing. And there's a bite on the drop. And we're in. Tench on the drop. That is a new phenomenon for me. That tells you how many fish are out there feeding, competing for the loose feed, coming up in the water. The float wasn't even nearly settled, so it was well up in the water column too. Only got 4 or 5 number 8 spaced down the line, fishing in about 7 foot of water. Incredible fishing. Incredible. Very next cast, on the drop again. Tench fishing on the drop, on the waggler. It's a first for me, and it just shows you what a good head of fish there are in here. It's amazing to think I spent the first hour struggling. That's why you've got to keep trying and keep making changes. Find the fish, work out what they want. And in this case it's casters on the drop. Wow, this is dream fishing on a new venue. Not suggesting for a minute I've cracked it, but 8 tench in the last hour, a couple of them on the drop, is pretty incredible fishing, very enjoyable. The matchman in me is wondering if there's any bigger fish to be caught, and the pleasure angler in me is wondering about different species. So I think we'll keep going until we reach maybe double figures out on the waggler, and I've no fear about managing to do that. Now the fish are coming so thick and fast, so we'll see whether we can reach 10 fish on the distant waggler line. We'll keep putting a bit of ground bait in closer in, and then we'll perhaps have a go on the corn, see if there are any crucians about or bigger tench. But yeah, this is magic. Well, maybe I have cracked it. That's a third fish on the drop in 4 casts. Probably at half depth, I would guess. Tip had a long way to settle. And I'm 50 years old, been fishing for 45 of them. I don't think I've ever regularly had tench on the drop, as if I was fishing for roach. And that, oh, he's off again. Those pads are my nemesis. It's exhilarating stuff, and I'm not fishing too fine, if anyone's thinking that. I've not been bust, just pulled out. Could perhaps fish a bigger hook, but I am only fishing single or double caster, and as I say, I've got a slightly more powerful rod and a slightly bigger hook set up and ready for fishing down in that margin there. So I think I'll stick it out on this rig and on the caster, like I say, until we reach double figures, and then we'll perhaps give it a go down towards those pads. But yeah, keeping that loose feed going in regularly, because they're clearly competing for it. And there's another, just to prove. It's incredible. That's a fourth cast out of 5 I've hooked a tench on the drop. I think that's called bagging in match terms. And I'm certainly enjoying bagging on the waggler. Again, they know where that patch of pads is, but I'm not going to let them go this time. Incredible fishing to be getting a tench almost every chuck, most of them on the drop. Even if they are of a similar stamp, probably ranging between £1.5, £2, and the best has been more like 3.5. Fantastic. Well, the loose feed approach is really paying off. Obviously trying the ground bait closer in, but out there on the waggler line, casters and hemp are doing the business. And that's my third and final pint of casters, so should be plenty, but I'm surprised I need this much. So back on with a couple of golden shells. Let's see if we can get number 10, and then we'll perhaps have a change of tactic. We know we can go back out on this line and there's plenty of fish there, but that's the beauty of pleasure fishing versus match. I always like to catch as many as I can and as big a fish as I can, but just out on a lovely Sunday afternoon, and if I want to try a different line, see if I can get a bigger tench or a crucian, I can. As much as I love my match fishing. Another one on the drop. There must be a whole shoal of tench out there. Well, that is a cracking £5 9-ounce tinker. Lovely fish, unbelievably on the drop, single caster. Now let's get her back. Well, that was a lovely fish, and the irony is it was number 10 out there on that waggler line, again on the drop. And I had said to myself and you at home that I would try back on these closer lines, maybe with sweet corn, when I'd caught my 10th, but that was clearly a much better fish, almost double the size of some of the ones I've been catching. So although it's up to me, there's plenty of time left. I think I'm going to stick to that long line while there's some good fish feeding out there, and we'll save these inside lines for a bit later. Ducks are keen anyway. This is a slightly shorter 11-foot Grays power float rod with the centre pin and a lovely porcupine quill, and I've got some corn that I've added my usual molasses flavouring to darkens it off nicely. We'll just try a single grain. Really is just a short lob out where I've been putting the feed. I'll have to hope that the commotion caused by 15 tench on the wagglers not completely killed it, but nice to watch that big bright tip, and fingers crossed we might get something on the corn. Well, as much as I'd love to get one on the porcupine quill, the centre pin in the margins, I've given it a good 20 or 30 minutes now without so much as a dip on the corn. I've also tried double caster just to check it's not the bait preference, but despite the regular ground bait, it doesn't seem there's many fish closer in. And I'm sure that changes in the warmer months when the weed growth and the leaves on the trees get to more maturity, but yeah, when you know there's that many fish further out, it's hard to justify giving it much more than half an hour really. So yeah, I think we're gonna have to go back out on that far line. Now let's see if the fish are still there. The short answer is no, the fish aren't out there still. Well, not in any great numbers, because I've been going 15 or 20 minutes now, quite a few casts and no bites. Could be a time of day thing, or maybe I wasn't feeding quite as regularly as I was when I was actually fishing it during that period I was down here in the margins. But this is the beauty of having a few lines on the go. I'm going to give it a go on the inside line, but not the margin, the one straight in front, just a rod length out. I've been putting the odd bit of bait in there all day, so I'll give that a go, keep feeding on the far waggler line, and then I've got a couple of options for the last hour or two. Just a gentle lob, this one really. And feed by hand. Let's try it here. Bite first try, shot away. Somehow missed it. Let's give that another go. It's encouraging. I'll try holding the rod this time. I wasn't expecting anything straight away like that. Patience has paid off. A fish on single caster on that inside line, just a rod length out. I'd missed a couple of very quick bites, which I think were small silvers, but this feels like probably another tench. Got him. With him slipped back, it's time to try single shell again. And really are talking a gentle flick out, and we're on the spot. It's a real shame couldn't get anything on the corn and the centre pin right down in the margin, but it is about another foot or two deeper here, just at the bottom of the shelf, so it could just be still a little bit too early in the year, a little bit too cool in terms of the water temperature for the fish to be really coming up into the margins. So let's try for another. And we're in again down the edge. think this might be a new species, which, not to sound like I'm complaining, but would be welcome. Something like 17 tench now, I think. This feels a bit like a bream. Fishing right at the bottom of that shelf, still single caster and just loose feeding over the top. After plenty of ground bait, and that's perhaps what's brought this slab in, if it is a slab. Could be another tench. It's fighting a bit now. Let's have a look. Feels like a heavy fish though. Oh, it's a carp. How did I get a carp mixed up with a bream? It just didn't fight to begin. Had that heavy, docile feel of a bream, but it's really woken up now and it looks like a carp. I don't think it's a crucian. Now this is real fun on float gear. Got to take it easy. Hope it doesn't find the pads over to the right. Got that clutch set just right. It's a decent fish. Just, you don't often get carp that wallow around and don't go off on at least one mad run, but it's a really nice fish. It's a shame I'm not on that beefier float rod. I could give it a bit more stick. It'd be lovely to get this in though. I was fishing for carp in a video the other week, or last week. Oh, he's off. Oh, that's a gutter. I was about to say I was fishing for carp in a small carp pond, small farm pond last weekend, and didn't hook anything as big as that. That looked maybe a low double, but pulled out. Gutter. Looks like it's tench or nothing today. Oh well, that really is quite devastating. After playing it carefully and keeping it away from the pads, it hadn't made any crazy runs and felt like I was just getting on top of it. It was a really nice common. You could see its big scales under the water, and yeah, but no doubt it was a double figure fish. So real shame not to have a look at that, but still epic session. Let's finish with the last hour down on this inside line. I think I'll forget the distant line and stop feeding that. Keep giving it a go down here, see if we can get anything else. Put the last of the ground bait down there, and a bit of pellet. What's still eating away at me, apart from having had that on for so long and nearly getting it out for the camera, is I gather there's not many carp in here at all, and although I'm not fishing for them, it's still a kicker when you lose one. And I'm still trying to work out whether losing a big fish for the camera is any better or worse than losing it when you're just fishing on your own and there's no audience. In a way, it's nice to share the pain with you, and I'm sure you'll understand how I'm feeling at the moment. A bit of proof for the one that got away, but on the flip side, when you've put the time and the effort in to not only get fishing but film it, it is extra painful when you come that close to having a really nice fish to share with you. Never mind, we've got more time, and it has really been a special day. Not a bad start to my life in a new club. And a first go on a new venue. Well, it's a lovely evening, and I probably could fish on for another 45 minutes or so of light yet, but do you know what? Losing that carp, it was pretty devastating, but it's also been a natural conclusion to this session. The bites dried up even though I gave it another 15-20 minutes, and sometimes that's just the way it goes. Probably that big fish charging around right under the rod tip, and I'm not complaining for 1 second. First visit to this beautiful lake, Stockbridge Pond, and nearly 20 tench in only a few short hours. You know, I've got through a lot of bait, but I can only imagine what would be possible if I was here for a full day. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. I hope to get back here over the summer when the lilies are in their full splendour and all the leaves are out on the trees. It's been a lovely spring day, but I'm sure the fishing can only get even better. So if you're not already subscribed, please do, button below. And if you are already in the club and enjoying lots of videos like these, thanks so much for your support. Give it a like, and I'll see you again soon on the bank.